Okay, and so I'm not saying that it was the single worst case of meth mouth I've ever seen in my life, but it certainly was the most memorable. And that would be the two people waiting for me at the coffee shop, which is one of three places open to people under the age of 21 after about 10:30 p.m. in Wheeling, West Virginia, where I had just recently been scared off of a suspension bridge that connects to Wheeling Island, which is where one of the many gentlemen's clubs in Wheeling Island Casino is located. And at the end of the night, no, me and my friend Brent didn't get to spend the night at the local meteorologist's house as expected, but we did double back to the O'Connell Lodge in Zanesville, Ohio, right off of Route 666. And I do remember my last words being something along the lines of, Brent, you're a beehole.
I don't know where that story was going, but TJ, we went live. So, welcome everybody to episode 145 of Sawdust Talk, and we are joined tonight by Nick, the Working Grain, and we are excited to chat with him in a minute. TJ is going to run through our sponsors real quick, and then we will get into the show.
First and foremost, we need to thank Hannah and the team over at Surf Prep Sanding Systems, Dust Collection, and Abrasives. There are a handful of choices for a HEPA filtration system for your dust collection. And, well, you could look elsewhere. But why? Why? Make good choices, boys and girls, and people of all ages. Look at the Surf Prep dust collector, and it only takes one drywall sanding job to know that the shop vac that you thought was going to be okay was actually just going to spread the drywall dust into a fine layer over every surface in your house. But with Surf Prep, they burp the filters every few seconds to make sure that they don't get clogged, and you're just not going to get that mess. Let's also thank Layla over at Casey Bombshell Design. If you like tattoo flash inspired and pop culture and video game nerdiness scroll saw art, Layla is the man to look into. But we thank Layla for hosting the Sawdust Talk merch store. So if you want the coziest, most delightful night's sleep wrapped in the loving embrace of an extra soft Sawdust Talk t-shirt, and who wouldn't? You need to go to Casey Bombshell Design and find the Sawdust Talk gear. Because come on, nothing says a cuddly night next to the fireplace like an oversized Sawdust Talk shirt. We're also going to talk about Makers for St. Jude. We are well on our way to our sort of late winter, early spring bonanza. Makers for St. Jude is a portal created by Mike Suter over at Woodworker versus Cancer that allows makers to take their goods, raffle them off, and have the proceeds from the raffle tickets benefit children's cancer research and support. It doesn't get much more noble than that. And we have hitched our wagon to Mike and the Makers for St. Jude project for the last 2 years. Our goal for 2025 is to raise $50,000. And I truly believe that with your participation, listeners and watchers and listeners, we can make that happen and take your cool stuff and use it to do cool stuff for people who need your help. So yeah.
And maybe get Brent on that deal.
Yeah, we'll armbar them into some participation. And finally, the last thing we need to mention is that Sawdust Talk has a Patreon for as little as $5 a month, cheaper than a large coffee at that mermaid-inspired coffee place whose color scheme is green and white on their paper cups. You too could be supporting the likes of Jessie and I to make sure that if we need new gear, we can dip into Sawdust Talk money, or if we need plane tickets to come see you in person and give you the high five that you so richly deserve. Check us out on Patreon/Sawdust Talk. The only thing I think I forgot was if you are shopping at Surf Prep for your dust collection, we do have a coupon code, which is Sawdust Talk. Save some money, save your house from a micro thin layer of dust.
There we go. All right, Nick, welcome.
Hey.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm very excited. Thank you.
Okay. Can you tell us who you are? Why are you?
Why are you? Is that what you said?
Yep.
That's great. I am Nick Paci. I run the one-man shop known as The Working Grain on primarily on Instagram, a little bit on Facebook, not too much anywhere else, but Instagram is where I live, other than Syracuse, New York, which is where I was born and raised. We bought a house like 10 minutes down the road from my parents, so I didn't travel very far. But yeah, New Yorker all my life, and got into woodworking pretty early. My dad is was a tech and woodshop teacher at the high school that I went to. He taught there for, I don't know how many years. I don't even know if he knows how many years, but yeah, so he kind of roped us in every summer. We would go do odd jobs here and there for everybody, and, you know, kind of figured it out along the way. And I hated it when I was a kid, to be honest with you. It was always just, you know, I want to go play. I want to go do something else. And his famous phrase was like, if he said, hey, like, come on, I need help, be like, no, I'm doing something. His famous phrase was, now you're doing something else. And so that has always stuck with me. But yeah, it's been good. I developed more of like, I guess you could say like fine furniture type, like avenue along the way. Even though I make anything, you know, that's the goal, is make whatever I enjoy making. But I got away from more of like the construction side of things and got into like the fine-tuned woodworking. And it's been a blast to see how excited my dad gets, but also how excited I get to show my dad things. So that's kind of where it all stems from, is from him. So I definitely appreciate that. But yeah, other than that, I work customer service for Brunt Workwear, which many of you may know. We're the ones that always spam your feeds with all the ads and everything like that, and don't let you forget about us until you buy something. But yeah, I've been with Brunt for a little over a year now, and it's been great ever since I started. You know, I've loved it. It's a great community and great family to be a part of. Yeah, not too much else other than that. I'm a dad, you know, I don't know, fun stuff.
Well, you're also a wild and whirly wood turner.
Occasionally I do try my hand at wood turning, just like you, TJ, but not quite as good as you. I'll admit that.
Nah, I've seen your stuff. You know what you're doing out there, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, it takes a special kind of brain to show enthusiasm for getting wood spinning at, you know, 1,000+ RPM and then jabbing steel into it, right?
Yeah, you know, feet from your face. You know, it was great.
Yeah, I think that's what we get. We get to be the evil Knievels in the workshop.
Yeah. There have been probably a few too many close calls in my shop. I'm assuming there's probably same in yours.
Oh man, when I started, I wore a motorcycle helmet. Like I had like a
Yeah,
full thing because I know how dumb I am, right? And I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm gonna get hurt. And the thing is, I'm only handsome from the chin up, right? And so like I was like full helmet because like this is good. This is like, man, but like, you know, you got to protect yourself. And so I still very rarely turn without a face shield.
Oh, you have to. Yeah. There have been a few times where I couldn't find the face shield and you grab the safety glasses. You're like, yeah, I could do this. It'll be all right. And the first pass, you're getting splattered with chips. It's like, no, I'm good. Don't go back.
Yeah.
I'll find it.
No, it takes having the nerve to open your mouth and breathe while wearing safety glasses to think to yourself, you know what? There was a reason why I was wearing that face shield.
Right. Yeah.
So you were talking a little bit before we got started about turning a platter.
Yeah.
The machine that you use to turn.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us more about that.
So I'm turning on a Grizzly. To be honest with you, I don't know the model. It's like 1028, something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm just making up numbers, but it's an older Grizzly lathe. Originally, when I started turning, I was actually turning on my grandfather's his old lathe that we pulled out of his barn, and, you know, he had bolted it down to a rickety old metal table that I'm assuming he probably built. It was cool. It's all pulley driven, and, you know, to change the speed, you lift the base and then you got to move the pulley over to the next wheel. And it was a cool learning experience being able to work on that. I want to say it was an Atlas lathe, very old Atlas lathe. So going from that, I looked into doing something or getting something a little bigger because the capacity on the old lathe was, I think it was like maybe 6-inch radius, if I'm right, maybe 5-inch radius, something like that. And so I was looking into what could be good. I've seen a lot of people use the Harbor Freight lathe. with the rotating headstock, and it works great. Trevor over at I'm blanking on his handle now. Madeira Design.
Yeah.
He ran. I think he still runs one of the Harbor Freight ones, and so I talked to him about it for a bit, and tried to figure out, am I going to go that route, save a little bit of money, or do I spend a little more? And I just happened upon this Grizzly lathe about an hour away on Facebook Marketplace, and it was like barely used by the guy that had it. He had it inside all the time, so took the advantage of it and hopped in the truck and snatched it up. But yeah, it's been great. I love it. I just switched over to using carbide turning tools as well. I was using the traditional style, and my sharpening technique was not great, and so it was just a nightmare. And so jumping to the carbides has been way better, because you get, in my opinion, you get a smoother cut, easier cut. It's just, you can flip the edge of the carbide tooth that you're using. You just rotate it around, and you got a brand new cutting edge. So yeah, it's been good, and I'm very happy that I made that switch. Wish I did it sooner, but
well, yeah, and if it inspires confidence and it gets you holding the tool and standing at the machine more frequently,
yeah,
everybody wins, man.
Right.
So,
yeah.
It is a confidence building, wonderful piece of kit, and there are some really neat things that you can do with carbide that you could do with steel, but it kind of works better with carbide. So that's for another follow-up episode. We'll dive deep down the turning rabbit hole another time. I want to talk a little bit about CNC stuff with you.
Yeah.
You have a very recent project involving both turning and CNC, and I want you to spill the beans to our listeners, because I think it's creative and wonderful.
Yeah. So relatively new to the CNC world, to be honest with you. I picked up the Shipoko CNC that I have actually from Lee Oman, who picked it up from Pete Kapar. So it's been like passed down. The joke that we have is it's like the sisterhood of the traveling CNC, and each of us are going to get our turn with it. So I don't know. It's been fun. I got in initially to do more like design carves and maybe some trays and stuff like that, just the basic stuff everybody's doing, right? And then I was sitting there getting ready to piece together a segmented bowl, and I got an order for, I don't know, a handful of them over Christmas. And I was trying to figure out, like, okay, I can't take the time to, like, even if I use a wedgie sled, like it's kind of quick, but I got, set up to do and all that stuff. And I looked over and I saw the CNC there, and I was just like, why can't a robot just do it? Right. And so, I mean, the programming was crazy simple. It's just, a geometric shape with the specified angles that you need for a segmented bowl. I mean, TJ, as you know, it's, you're working segment length, segment width, if I'm correct, or depth. And then you judge how many pieces you want in each ring. And then that determines the angle. It's all mathematics and, way above my head. But
they got calculators and stuff for it also, man. Like, I'm sure that with a couple of mouse clicks these days, you can get like a whole menu of everything you could want. And then there's got to be a spreadsheet interpreter for that software where it's just like, of course I'll make you all of these things because I'm a robot.
There's a website that I use. I don't know how like super accurate it is, but it works pretty well. I can't remember the name of it. I'll send it to you a little bit later, but it does that exact thing, right? Like, it breaks down, like, if you want this angle, you got to go with this length or this depth, or, however it is. And that'll give you X size ring or however big. So I was thinking, like, it's got to be that easy, right? So I designed up the segments, staggered them so that, I could make the most of the material I was using, and hit start, and everything was easy. I mean, like, it carved it all out. The most I had to do was just clean it up a little bit. I put some tabs on there so I could cut a little deeper. And I mentioned it before we hopped in here, but the way that I clean it up, which is probably not great to say live and recorded, but it's a very tight grip on the segments using a palm router. You just like snap that tab off and you're done. And then you pull it away as fast as you can. So
you're going to learn a lot about yourself doing that.
Yeah, but no, I was mentioning to you that I gotta figure out a better way to do it. So anybody listening, if you have any advice on how to get that cleaner, or maybe I'm just not doing the whole like CNC carve right, let me know. I'm open to any and all ideas. But yeah, that's like the only part of the process that has tripped me up a little bit is just how can I make that cleanup process better? Because then the rest of it is you just glue it up in the segment ring and then glue the rings together, glue the base on, throw it on the lathe, and you're good to go. And as TJ knows, chunking out the core of a bowl is probably the most amount of time that you're spending on, a product on the lathe, right? Other than like fine tuning, the finish of it. But yeah, I mean, it takes that process out of it completely. You're just really shaping it at that point. And yeah, it's fun. It's very therapeutic, which is nice. And being able to have a robot do most of it is great.
And then segmented wood turning is really good if you're a carbide tool user, because you're only turning away side grain. So you don't actually have to cut across end grain if you don't want to, because of how the glue ups work. So it leaves a really, really nice finish and a lot less sanding.
Oh yeah.
A lot less sanding. So,
and you can get super cool with like I haven't ventured out that far into it. The most I've done is like a checkerboard pattern, but especially with segments, like you can get cooler designs, not even just shifting the segments like a certain amount, but like using the glue up lines as well. Like if you use, let's say you're using like a brown colored, wood glue or brown tinted wood glue, and then you use like hard maple, right? Like you're going to get that definitive line between each segment. So you can do kind of like a brick pattern instead, which is, I think is pretty cool. You can get pretty intricate with it. So.
Yeah. And we had Michael Alm on last week as well, Captain Pattern Plywood.
Yeah.
I introduced him to Dizzy Bowls, and so I can't wait to see what he starts cooking up when he goes down that rabbit hole in the not too distant future. So that'll be good. Okay, so we've done segmented CNC, we've done wood turning. What does the future hold for you? What are you cooking up here that you haven't either gotten anywhere other than your journal, or you're getting ready to pursue? You mentioned a little bit of furniture making. Is this an active threat to your future?
Yes and no. Opening up my mind is a dangerous thing, but we can, kind of peek it open a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. It's anytime anybody asks me, like if they find out I'm a woodworker and a maker, they ask, what do you make? Right? That's the general question that everybody always asks, right? My easy answer for somebody that like somebody's asking me in passing, easy answer is anything that makes money, right? Because why not? Right? The true answer is I have no idea, because I try everything. And that's kind of the fun part about it is like, I mean, I'm sure we've all gotten that thing where like people are like, oh, could you make this? It's like, well, I never have, but like might as well try. Right. So I think that's what gets me excited. And that's what the future looks like, right? More of that, more of, I haven't made that before, but let's do it and see what happens. Right. Furniture is getting there. I'm kind of doing what I've been seeing a lot lately, which is like flat pack pieces on the CNC and everything like that. And I'd really like to kind of scale that portion of it. The other thing that is the top of my list, and if my wife is watching, it's at the very top of the list, I promise, is a dining room table. Because since our old house, we moved into this house about 3 years ago at this point. And ever since, we've had this like dining room space that's just like a catch-all for everything. And so she was like, I want a dining room table. I want it to look like this. I want that. I want this. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll get to it. And I'm finally going to try and get to it. It's cool. We found a lumber supplier. Originally, we were going to do like farmhouse style, big bulky base legs and everything like that. And I was like, I would really love to do like a giant slab table. But you're going to spend however much finding that perfect slab and, paying for it and everything like that. There's a guy that I just recently found out lives like a mile down the road from us, who is buddies with like all the tree service companies in the area, and the stuff that they can't either, sell to the sawmills or anything like that, they bring right to him. And he's got a big wood miser mill, and he sells slabs. He's a woodworker as well. And, big solar kiln that he built on his property. It's a big farm property. So got a ton of space. And I called him up and I was like, hey, like, are you open to selling to other people? He's like, yeah, stop on by. Went down there. He's got buildings and buildings of slabs, and they are all absolutely dirt cheap. And I'm not going to tell everybody where it is because I don't want you stealing them from me. No, it's real small town, but yeah, it's just cool having that so close. And because of that, we're going to be able to do the full dining table with the big slab and everything like that for way more manageable of a cost, which is
That's so
I'm very
cool.
excited about. So yeah, very excited to get that in the works. I've been cleaning, I feel like, since I moved into this shop, but I'm trying to get things organized to the point where like I have enough space to be able to do something like that, and I can also do, you know, a few other projects in the meantime, like set a glue up and then go work on something else. It's not perfect yet, but it's getting there. It's a lot cleaner than it used to be, but
So you're talking about learning stuff from your grandpa and doing stuff on the side. Like, how did you get to working with Brunt? Like, what did you do before that?
yeah, it's a great question. So I actually went to um, college for mechanical engineering initially, and I was terrible at it. I was very very bad in school. My wife always makes fun of me because I think I had like a 1 point some odd GPA, like low ones first semester, and she was like, "What? Like, did you go to class?" Not really. But the so after that, I realized that I like really liked the mechanical portion of it, but the whole like physics and class and all that mathematics portion, like I didn't love it, right? Everything on paper didn't really enjoy it, but I really liked the physical portion of it. And so that kind of led me into switching majors out of engineering, transferring schools, getting into biology instead, because I also had I was an athlete in high school. I was a runner and a pole vaulter, and I was very like I was very like exercise minded, I guess you could say. And so I accompanied biology with physical therapy because I was thinking about it like the body is a machine. If a piece isn't working, the rest of the piece isn't going to work. And mechanically, how does that fit in to make this person better? And so that got me really excited. And I worked as a physical therapist assistant in New York State for 4 to 4.5 years. And I, you know, the whole time doing woodworking and, you know, building things and fixing things and stuff like that. And Maker Camp came around, and I had known, you know, a couple of people in the community, and they were like, "Hey, you should go. It's a lot of fun." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, we'll figure it out." So I packed my wife and my oldest son in the car. I think he was like 1.5 at that point. Packed him in the car. I was like, "We're gonna go to this thing. It's gonna be a lot of fun," and it was, obviously. But while I was there, Lee Oman and his wife Danielle, who I'm very good friends with, have been since a long while ago, and I credit them with this story every single time I see them. But they were like, "Hey, we want to introduce you to somebody we know." I was like, "Okay, yeah, cool." They introduced me to Jeremy Perkins, who works for Brunt. He's in a lot of the ads, and a lot of people have seen him. But him and I got talking. And he was like, "Hey, what do you do for work?" I was like, "I work in physical therapy." He's like, "You like it?" I was like, "Not really." He's like, "Oh, okay." So then we just got talking, and he was like, "What do you like about it? What do you like? What do you not like about it?" And he was like, "Well, listen." He's like, "I don't want to like poach you at all." He's like, "This is ultimately your decision. You." This position is here, right? Like we are always accepting applications and everything like that. He's like, "Put your name in, we'll see what happens," right? And this was a completely up in the air kind of thing, and I was like, "Yeah, maybe, you know, maybe I'll think about it." PT is cushy and safe, right? And I was like, "I don't really know, like I know about Brunt, but I don't know a ton about Brunt, and I don't know what I would be doing, and like I have a skill set that doesn't really fit into that area, right?" And so a couple months down the road, we set up a meeting, and I submitted an application, and I talked with my wife before this, and I was like, is this a good idea? She's like, "Well, how do you feel?" I was like, "I mean, I have a good feeling about it. Like it's different because it's not what I'm used to and it's not what I'm in. But it's a risk that I want to take because I like what they stand for, and I like what they're doing for the community and you know where they're trying to go, right?" So I took my shot and I put my application in, and I ended up getting a position on their customer service team. And kind of the rest is history, right? Like it's cool to me that my love for woodworking and my enjoyment in the maker community kind of led me to a completely different career path than I was on mark for. And it quite possibly quite possibly is the best decision I've ever made. And it was like the scariest decision at the same time. So I don't know. It was this whole kind of whirlwind of an adventure that really all started with Lee and Danielle introducing me to Jeremy, and then kind of went from there. So yeah, it's been good. It's been very good. And obviously, as people may know, like Brunt is growing very quickly, which is exciting to see. Being able to be there for the experience of it. It's a lot of fun.
Super cool.
Yeah.
TJ's stewing down here.
TJ's stewing hard. I don't know how much you can share with us about the future of Brunt and what is coming. How about this? To the best of your knowledge, are lines expanding faster on the apparel side or the footwear side? Is that a question that we can ask?
It's a great question. I can't get too far into it. But I will say that we are looking at expanding kind of all around, right? And so it's one of those things that like you got to look at all avenues. And I think that both our boots and our apparel have phenomenal responses throughout the community. And I know that a lot of people like, the Chevlin hoodie, right? That is been a key point in the apparel game of Brunt. And actually Braden Littlebug was giving me trouble about it because we were out of stock for quite a bit in his size. And he, like, every time he would see an ad, he's just like, when are your sweatshirts getting back in? When are your hoodies getting back in? Can you send me one? Can you send me a hoodie? And I was like, Braden, I can't get them. How are you supposed to get them if I can't get them? So yeah, no, it's something that is in the works, and that's kind of where I can leave it.
Hey, that's fine. I ask the questions that I want to know, but I don't want you to get in trouble, especially at what you've just described as being a dream position for you. So we'll be respectful in that regard.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, I wouldn't be a female woodworker without asking the question, which I know we have discussed in the past, is when is the women's workwear coming out?
It's a good question. I don't know. That's all I can say. I will say.
Can you message me later?
We'll talk. But in all honesty, it's something that Brunt is looking at. Obviously there are a lot of women in the trades and in the maker community and that avenue, right? That not many, if any, other companies. Carhartt's a big one that has a lot of women's apparel. But I think other than that, there's maybe a handful that, have a true women's work line. And it's something we get a lot of calls about, women calling in to get the right size boot and everything like that. Or if they have questions beforehand about fit or anything like that, they'll say like, hey, like we need our sizes. And I get it, right? Like I have 3 older sisters and a younger brother. So like primarily female driven household when I was growing up. And so like, it's something that should be represented. And I know that that's a big focus of kind of where the avenues are going to take us kind of thing. So, yeah, I don't know, to be honest with you.
I mean, I personally have that complaint with a lot of places. Cause even like when it comes to Carhartt, if I go to a local, store that carries Carhartt, the women's section is like this big and the men's section is like this big. And I'm like, what the heck? Like it just, I don't know. I'm a firm believer that like we need to, like as women, we need to advocate for more women's workwear and more brands support us doing what we do. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I completely agree. It's and like Brunt's big thing is like, we want to listen to the customer, right? And that's pivotal in making the things that people need and providing the gear and the tools that people need to do their jobs, right, and be safe while they're doing their jobs. And so that, I mean, like, one of our big things is that we want to disrupt the industry. We want to disrupt the standard of workwear brands, right? And so by doing that, you got to listen, not tell somebody what they need. You got to listen to what they need. And so that's, a big thing is, like, if somebody calls in with, a complaint or a piece of feedback, that's all helpful. Anything we can get is helpful. So even just you mentioning that there, that shows there's need for it, right? There's a push and there's a want for it. So let's make it happen, right? Let's figure out a way to do it.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I kind of want to double back to this slab table that we talked about a few minutes ago. At the beginning of this story, you mentioned big chunky farmhouse legs, right? Do you think this is the direction you're going to continue to go, or is this an excuse to buy a tool so that you can start welding up some steel legs for yourself?
No, I don't know. We actually had that conversation, my wife and I, about the style of it. Cause like in my mind, I'm like, oh, that would look great. But then she's like, man, I don't really like it. And so metal base was a topic that was brought up. And I was thinking, ideally we would do black walnut for the top. Cause why not? Right. Everybody loves walnut. Everybody always says dark wood. We all know what they mean. So thinking about like a darker walnut and then black square tube metal base with a sort of, like, my thought was like a geometric point inward, if you will. I'm terrible at describing things, but yeah, some sort of like funky configuration that's like a little bit more on the sleek side, but also gives a little more depth. And she was like, no, that's not going to fly. I want wood base. I was like, okay. So I think what we're going to do, she sent me a couple of like inspiration pics. I got the Pinterest feed that just got blasted at my phone. But it was a lot of like DIY type tables and benches and people going to Home Depot and grabbing, whatever planks and screwing them together, and they stain it and it looks great. And then I think like I can make that better. Like that's good, but like I can do it better. Right. And so one popped up and it was, I don't know how to describe it, but basically it was like a series of angled pieces, but only one of them was touching the tabletop, and the entire thing was like fully supported from underneath. The other leg was just a mirrored version of that. So I got to look into it. It looked like more of like a 4x4 post. So I'm going to have to do some laminating and, figure out the dimensions and all that stuff. Yeah. It was like, I don't know. It was a cool sort of like, I don't even know, like sea urchin type.
Yeah.
Like design kind of thing. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not great at describing things, but yeah, I think we're going to go that route just because it's kind of like what I said in the beginning. Like I've never done anything like that before. I'm not phenomenal at welding, but I can do it. My dad, it was one of the things that my dad taught me like long time ago. So if I needed to, I could always grab his welder, but I've never done like a table base like this before. And so I'm excited to figure out, at what angles can I push it to where it's still supported and not going to fall out, with a plate on top of it. But also make it, look elegant and interesting, in the space that we have. So yeah,
that's
I think
totally
that's
my jam.
Yeah.
I love like the rustic mixed with metal look. Like that. Yeah. I love it so much.
Yeah.
So I have a welder, and I actually want to make my own kitchen table.
Yeah.
So maybe we should, cross ideas and stuff.
Yeah. Are we all going to be table leg welders here in the not too distant future?
I love it.
Yeah. No, I recovered a walnut tree compliments of Facebook Marketplace and took it to get milled. And Luke hasn't been on the show, but I got a Instagram buddy who's just across the river in Illinois. I'm in St. Louis. Nice. And this was 2 years ago. And so my 2-inch thick slabs have had their end grain sealed and have been air drying beautifully over in Illinois. And he flattened slabs for a local lumber mill that did the cutting for us over there.
Nice.
And so, yeah, we're going to have some flat slabs, and we're going to be welding up some table bases here in the not too distant future. So I'll show
Cool.
you guys some stuff that I've been poking around with.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, I think there's so much that you can do with like the combination of materials. I mean, like you look at what epoxy did for the maker community, right? Like so many people are getting into it because of that and because of the look of like the river tables and the, you know, the wave boards and all that stuff. Like those, like just the combination of those two, and then you throw metal into it, and you could throw I don't know if anybody's done like Razzo. I've never used it before, but like there's probably some combination you can do with it. I was talking with Stone about an idea that I had of doing whether a table or coasters or whatever, but taking like a thin, essentially like a rock cookie, like thin little sliver of a piece, and like perfectly inlaying it into a wooden cookie or, you know, some sort of hollowed out piece. And so like, I think that's really cool. Like adding the combination of those materials is awesome. So
Yeah, we have a friend of the show, Mr. Patrick Gensel. Gensel?
Yeah.
Yeah, so his feed haunts my imagination in ways that very few others do. And I got to thinking about, I think I was looking at like a redwood slab that somebody was trying to sell on Marketplace. And it had like a couple of voids because it was like a root ball and was real squirrely. And I was like, okay, so I can take a CNC and I can route a lip around the edge of these voids.
Right.
And then because Mr. Gensel's got those scanners that are dimensionally accurate, right? I could scan and generate a shape and send it to like a local glass cutter.
Yeah.
And you could be dropping in like glass inserts into your pieces that are going to sit flush and be organic and squirrely. And then I don't have to be good, right? I've got a robot, right?
Yeah, right.
But you know, like a 12 by 12 by reasonable size piece of safety glass is not expensive.
Yeah, right.
Especially compared to, you know, thermoplastics that people like to pour gallons of at a time. And then you also aren't dealing with thermoplastics, which is also really good. Right?
Right.
And so everybody wins. And granted, I would be a rental type user of a 3D scanning apparatus in my mind this week, right? There's always next week. I can be convinced otherwise. But I was like, man, being able to take photos of stuff and then have it just like burp out into a machine to exactly the dimensions that it needs to be. It's way cool.
It's cool. It's really cool. Yeah. And I feel like that's like, cause I have a Prusa Mini that I got years ago. And I remember having that same thought printing the first item, you know, the benchy or whatever it was. And I ran downstairs and it was like showing my wife. I was like, hey, like, check this out. This is freaking cool. She was like, it's a boat. Like, what do you mean? I was like, yeah, man, I just made like this didn't exist before the code went through the printer, and now it just spit out this plastic piece that looks like a boat. She's like, yeah, but it's just a boat. I was like, you don't get it. Like, you don't understand what just happened. Like, that came from a computer. Like, that's awesome. But it's like this this Oreo, it's like a catch-all case kind of thing, just unscrews and it's two pieces. I made this and she was like, why did you make that? And I was like, just because I wanted to. She was like, okay. Like, when you bought this printer, you said you were going to monetize it. And I was like, I did. But it's also fun. So, you know.
It's also fun.
Yeah. No, it's cool.
I mean,
I love that feeling. Having that, like, that's dope.
Well, I mean, there's that dope. And then, like, you know, we got a 3D printer from my parents for Christmas this year. And it was to, like, me and the beard, Robert. But it turned into, like, a family project. Because my kid's on Tinkercad, like, designing stuff and wanting to print stuff. And, like, he's learning another, like, FreeCAD, which is a little more advanced, but he's got on FreeCAD and he's like trying to figure that out. And I mean, he's 9. Like,
Yeah.
this is amazing. Like, it's so cool that these kids have these options to do cool stuff and start as young as they are with this
Yeah.
technology.
Well, even thinking about like, you talk about what, 10 years, 10, 15 years ago, like the thought
Yeah.
of having a 3D printer in your, like my dad at school was like looking into them with the school budget. I was like, that's crazy. Like, that's so cool that like the school's going to let you get a 3D printer. He's like, yeah, they're really expensive though. And now I have one sitting 6 feet from me, just, all paid off. Everything's good. You can get them for dirt cheap. It's a cool piece of technology that I think a lot of people don't know is so accessible. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it blows my mind when I was in middle school, and granted, back in my day, this was like 92, 91. My middle school shop teacher had a room dedicated to essentially a CNC router engraver,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So this is 35 years ago. I mean, this story is almost as gold as Super Mario 3 for the original Nintendo. That's
Yeah, yeah.
how long ago this happened. But yeah, I remember typing the text into the machine and then putting my little piece of plexi, which was, black, white, black coated plexi, and making essentially a nameplate that, in my infinite nerdiness, definitely went in front of some of my Warhammer figures I had painted earlier that week. So
Yeah.
it finally became
Yeah,
cool.
no,
Henry Cavill does it.
you know. No, I think it's cool. And to kind of just speak what Jessie was talking about, like with your son being involved in it and everything like that, like Jack's my older son. He like anytime he'll walk by my office, like he'll walk by and he's like, "Can we check the printer?" It's like, "Printer's not going, but like, I can turn it on if you want." He's like, "Yeah, let's turn it on. Let's print something." It's like, "Okay, cool, let's do it." And he's 3.5. So it's like, that aspect of it is making it cooler because I can see how excited he gets.
Yeah.
And Jessie, I mean, like seeing you at Maker Camp with your daughter, Alyssa, right? Is her name? Yeah. So like seeing Alyssa like mingling with all the people and everything like that, and just like being involved was awesome. And I love that events like that are becoming more family based, right? Because it's getting kids excited about it sooner. And if we have that drive of like thinking about like where 3D printers came from 15 years ago to now, like what's it going to look like in another 15 years, right? Like what are we going to have that's that much cooler and we're all that excited about because our kids were the ones to like build it up and develop it to what we want to use, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll all get old enough where we're like, I don't understand any of that, and just go play your video games or whatever when we're playing our own video games up here, right? But
Well, I mean, I don't understand their video games, but like my kids started out on Minecraft and I was like, I didn't have a problem with it because I was like, this is so creative. Like you guys are building worlds and you're doing all this cool stuff. And they'd come show me like, Mom, look at this. And I'm like, you built that whole thing? Like, what?
yeah,
But
right.
it's like turning into, I guess for me as a parent being like, hey, this is really cool that you have this creative mind. How can we implement this and let you just explore your own creativity? Which I think that's like where it comes down to for me. I just want my kids to have the freedom to find their own creativity. So
Yeah. No, that's great. And I love that. I mean, like the big question anytime any maker in the community has a kid or kids, it's always, are you going to bring them to the shop? Are you going to get them in the shop? Are you going to get them interested in that? Right. And I think your answer was perfect, right? Like let them get excited about what they're excited about in their own way, but facilitate it where you can. Like I put a TV out in my shop and I would bring Jack out and do it. And he'd sit in his little chair and watch Danny Go. I don't know if you guys know Danny Go, YouTube sensation. We saw him live and he was actually really good. But I think I was a little more excited than my son was, but it is what it is. But he would like sit there and he would watch Danny Go, or he would watch Lion King, or, a movie with his snacks. And I would be in there, doing a glue up. And it got to the point, like initially all he wanted to do was just watch his show because it was, there and exciting. And then as he spent more time there, like he would look over and he's like, oh, can I help? Like, can I help? Can I do this? And I was like, sure, yeah, if you want to, that's great. And he's doing the same thing with cooking. Like, I'll be getting dinner ready for him. He's like, Dada, can I help cook? It's like, sure, yeah, hop on up. So it's cool. And I like when people are getting their kids involved for the right reasons, right? Like, let them get excited about it. Let's not force it on them, because then nobody wants to do that, right? But yeah, no, it's good.
Yep.
Love that, man. No, my oldest goes to a school that has woodworking classes even in kindergarten. So
Cool.
yeah, there's a few episodes back. He brought home his first miter cuts. So it's just, miter cuts from a box, right? But at the same time, he was so proud. He like numbered them so that he could get them all put back together, and he could show me his block of wood with his cross cut and his angle cuts. It's really, really cool that they have educational programming down to 6 years old.
Yeah.
But he's pretty mature, and so I think we're gonna try doing some slow speed scroll sawing. I think is sort of the next thing. And I think if we did like plexi or just 1/4 inch ply or something, and I'll have him draw a picture, and then we'll just cut it out of a piece of wood, and it'll probably blow his mind. So
yeah. No,
that's the plan.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we are at about 46 minutes on this episode. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that you have not had a chance to talk about yet?
Ooh. Well, so I'll throw a little plug for this week, really. It may run a little longer, but I'm currently throwing a giveaway. My birthday was this past Monday, so I thought, what better way to celebrate than to give back to other people,
right? Mazel tov.
Who supported me. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, it's exciting. I reached out to a couple of brands in the community who I use in my shop regularly, because I wanted to give insight to people who, not only have supported me and, use the same products that I do, but like, let's say like somebody new follows me and they see the giveaway and they're like, well, I've never used that before, but let's try it. Right. Gives you the opportunity to try new things, which is kind of fun. And I love these brands and they're great. And they were gracious enough to donate some things. So, yeah, there's go to my Instagram. The last reel that I posted, should have all the details. Make sure you follow all the stuff there. And I'm going to be drawing it. My original plan was to draw it this coming Sunday. I may bump it out a little further just to give people more time. So stay tuned for updates. But yeah, throw that some love and maybe win yourself some cool stuff. And I love seeing all the comments like coming through and stuff like that on a standard giveaway. Like just you go through them all and there's just people commenting names and stuff like that. But like, there's some comments coming through that are saying like, oh, like this would be great. Like, thanks for throwing the giveaway. Like these products are awesome. And like, that's really cool to see because it's not just like, oh, let me throw my name in here and maybe win some stuff. Right. Like it's people who are genuinely excited about the things that they could potentially be gaining from these great brands in the community and everything like that. So yeah, if you would be so kind, go throw that some love and maybe grab some free stuff.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So we need to take one more lap through our sponsors for the second half of the show. The first of which is Hannah and the team over at Surf Prep Sanding Systems. I believe it was Pete who was doing some sanding this week on some ice climbing tools that he is working on for training. And he did a really, really nice video about the sponge back abrasives and how good they are getting into the nooks. And as a wood turner who occasionally creates some pattern surfaces in places I don't want them, having something that still can sand and get into all the nooks and crannies. So you want to make sure that your bits are the smoothest bits that your hand has ever touched. Let me tell you, Surf Prep Sanding Systems will get you there. Show off your wood. Thanks, Surf Prep. The other, we also need to thank Layla over at Casey Bombshell for hosting our gear and our merch. It's wonderful. It's soft. It's luxurious. And you're supporting the channel. And Layla, which is awesome. If you're going to be shopping at Surf Prep, make sure you use Sawdust Talk as a coupon code because saving money is good. right? I like saving money. You probably like saving money. Everybody wins. That's awesome. Makers for St. Jude. Let's say you're thinking to yourself, wow, that sounded pretty cool earlier. How do I get involved? Reach out to me. Reach out to Jessie. Reach out to Mike over at Makers for St. Jude. Reach out to Braden. Reach out to Kamani. These people all know how to hold your hand and help you get your gear doing good stuff for people who need good things. And St. Jude is a wonderful charity to help us accomplish that. Patreon /Sawdust Talk. I mean, I don't want to make this sound like an ASPCA commercial. You know, we can sing in the arms of an angel if you want, but for as little as $5 a month, you can help this show continue to be as awesome as it is, and maybe even increase that awesomeness incrementally every month. And we would appreciate that support. That brings us to our final question. Nick, every week at the end of the episode, we like to ask our guests for a motivational thought of your own, or perhaps a quote or something that gets you motivated or that you would like to share to motivate our viewers and listeners to kick open the door to their shop. Go take the tarp off of a tool, go hold something scary in their hand and use it to get awesome or make a mess. What would you like to share with our watchers and listeners?
Yeah, so I'm going to dial it all the way back to beginning of the episode. Big old turnaround here to something my dad said that I've already said. Now you're doing something else. That has stuck with me. I say it to my own kids now, which probably infuriates them, but it's what we're here for. No, that alone, that one phrase has, like, if I'm tired or if I'm sluggish or don't feel like getting out into the shop when it's 12 degrees outside and it's only 45 degrees in the shop, I think about that and I think now you're doing something else, because I could very well easily, sit on the couch, put on a show, do some Legos, whatever. But now I'm doing something else and I'm going to go be productive and I'm going to go make something cool to share with people who I enjoy and who enjoy seeing what I'm putting out there. So yeah, now you're doing something else. Take it how you will. But that's my Kickstarter that gets me going. If I'm getting a little on the lazy side and not spending enough time in the shop, because then I get grumpy and nobody likes grumpy Nick. So now I'm doing something else.
Very nice.
Oh my gosh. Nick, thank you so much for coming on tonight. We super appreciate you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It was great. Yeah. Love talking to you guys.
This has been episode 145 with Nick of The Working Grain. And we will see you guys, TJ,
Next week, same bat time, same bat channel.